The woman was standing in my driveway with a clipboard, her smile sharp as broken glass. "You have 48 hours to vacate this property," she said, tapping a violation notice against her palm. "Or I'm calling the sheriff." I'd been out of my car for maybe 3 minutes. The box containing Pop's ashes was still sitting on the passenger seat. My legs ached from 12 hours of driving, and this stranger in pastel pink activewear was blocking my porch steps like she owned the place. "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "There must be some mistake. This is my grandfather's cabin. I inherited it." Her smile didn't waver. "Sweetie, I don't know what you think you inherited, but this property has been abandoned for over 2 years. It's a safety hazard, an eyesore, and frankly, a threat to everyone's property values." She thrust the clipboard toward me. "I'm Karen Whitmore, president of the Pine Valley Homeowners Association, and you're in violation of 7 HOA codes." I stared at the notice. It listed things like peeling exterior paint, unmowed grass, non-compliant roofing materials. At the bottom, in bold red ink, $2,500 in fines. Additional $500 per day until compliance. "I just got here," I said. "I didn't even know there was an HOA." Ignorance isn't an excuse. Karen pulled the clipboard back, made a note with her pen. "The association was formed in 2019 to protect property values and maintain community standards. Your grandfather's neglect doesn't exempt you from following the rules." The way she said, "your grandfather," made my jaw tighten, like he was some nuisance she'd finally gotten rid of. I looked past her at the cabin. It was exactly how I remembered it from 15 years ago. Log walls darkened by weather and time. A stone chimney. A porch with 2 rocking chairs that Pop built by hand. The roof sagged a little on one side, sure. The paint around the windows had peeled, but it was still standing. Still home. "I have every right to be here," I said. Karen's smile finally cracked. "Actually, sweetie, you don't. This land doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the community, and the community has standards." My hands curled into fists at my sides. I forced them open. "I'll look into it," I said. "You do that." Karen turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and one more thing. I've already consulted with a lawyer and a developer. We've been working on reclaiming neglected properties in the valley. You're not the first squatter who's tried to claim land they don't own." She walked back to her white Escalade, heels clicking on the gravel. Before she drove off, she rolled down her window. "Enjoy your last night here." I stood there until the dust settled. The valley was quieter than I remembered. When I was a kid, Pop and I would sit on this porch at dusk and listen to the forest wake up. Owls, coyotes, the wind moving through the pines like a living thing. Now there were houses. Not many, but enough to change the feeling of the place. Vacation homes with big windows and fresh paint. Mailboxes shaped like bears and fish. A paved road where there used to be just dirt. Pop had been gone 3 months. The lawyer said he left me everything in his will. The cabin, the land, a few $1,000s in a savings account. I hadn't been back here since I was 17. Life got complicated. College, work, excuses. I grabbed the box of ashes from the front seat and carried it inside. The cabin smelled like cedar and dust and decades of wood smoke. Everything was exactly where Pop left it. His flannel shirts hanging on hooks by the door. His coffee mug on the kitchen counter. A ring of dried sediment at the bottom. The bookshelf crammed with field guides and Louis L'Amour novels. I set the box on the mantel, next to a photo of Pop and me holding up a string of trout. I was maybe 12 in that picture. Sunburned and grinning. He had his hand on my shoulder, proud. "I'm sorry it took me so long," I whispered. The cabin didn't answer. I spent the next hour unpacking, my duffel bag in the bedroom, groceries in the kitchen. The whole time, I kept thinking about Karen's face, that cold, confident smile, the way she talked about Pop's cabin like it was garbage. By the time the sun started to set, I was exhausted, hungry, angry. I made a sandwich and sat on the porch steps, looking out at the valley. The light turned everything gold and purple. The mountains in the distance looked like they were on fire. This place used to feel endless, wild, like it belonged to no one and everyone at the same time. Now it felt claimed. I finished my sandwich and went back inside. Started poking around. Pop wasn't the kind of man who threw things away. Every drawer, every closet was packed with decades of life. Old tax returns, receipts, handwritten notes on the backs of envelopes. In the bedroom closet, behind a stack of wool blankets, I found a metal box. It was locked, heavy, the kind of box you keep important things in. I searched the cabin for a key, checked the junk drawer, the coffee cans on top of the fridge, finally found it taped to the underside of Pop's desk drawer. Inside the box, a thick manila envelope, a surveyor's map, a stack of papers held together with a rusty paperclip, and a letter. The handwriting was shaky, but unmistakably Pop's. If you're reading this, it means Karen finally made her move. My heart started pounding. I sat down on the bed and kept reading. Alex, I'm sorry I never told you the whole truth about this place. I didn't think it mattered. Turns out, it does. I bought this land in 1978, all of it, 320 acres. Back then, nobody wanted it. Too far from town. No roads. Winters were brutal. But I loved it. So I bought it cheap and built the cabin with my own hands. Over the years, people started moving in, building vacation homes. I didn't mind. There was plenty of space. I never asked them for money or made a fuss. I figured the land was big enough to share. But Karen Whitmore is different. She moved here 5 years ago and immediately started acting like she owned the place, formed an HOA, started making rules, tried to get me to tear down the cabin and develop the land. I told her no. Politely at first, then not so politely. She thinks I'm a senile old man who doesn't know what he owns. But I do, and now you do too. Everything in this box is proof. The deed, the survey, the tax records. It's all legal, all recorded. Don't let her bully you. Don't let her win. This place belongs to you now. Protect it. Love, Pop. I read the letter 3 times, then I pulled out the surveyor's map and spread it across the bed. The boundaries were marked in thick red ink, starting at the creek on the west side, running up the ridge to the north, cutting east along the old logging road, then back down to the highway. Every house I'd seen driving in, every mailbox, every driveway, all of it was inside the red lines. Pop didn't just own the cabin, he owned the entire valley. I sat there on the bed as the light faded outside, the map in my hands, the letter on my lap. Karen's voice echoed in my head. This land doesn't belong to you anymore. She was wrong. And tomorrow, I was going to prove it. The letter was 3 pages long, written in Pop's shaky handwriting. By the second paragraph, my hands were trembling. I didn't sleep that night, just sat at the kitchen table with the letter, the deed, and the surveyor's map spread out in front of me. Read everything twice, then 3 times, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. Pop had bought 320 acres in 1978 for $15,000. The deed was signed, notarized, recorded with the county, legal in every way that mattered. He wrote about how the valley was different back then. No paved roads, no power lines, just forest and creek and sky. He'd built the cabin himself over 2 summers, hauled in every log, poured the foundation by hand. In the letter, he explained how things changed slowly over the years. The county extended the main road in the 90s, brought in electricity. Suddenly, the valley wasn't so remote anymore. People started buying what they thought were empty lots and building vacation homes. Pop let them. He was a kind man, didn't care about property lines or fences, figured there was enough space for everyone, never charged rent, never filed complaints, just lived his life and let others live theirs. But he also never sold a single acre. The last page of the letter was dated 6 months before he died. Karen Whitmore has been trying to take this land for years. She thinks I'm too old to fight back. She's been telling people the land is abandoned, unclaimed, that anyone can file for oversight. Don't believe her. This land is yours now, all of it. Every tree, every rock, every house that someone built thinking they owned the ground underneath. Don't let her win. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. Outside, the sun was starting to rise. Pink light filtered through the pines. The valley looked peaceful, innocent. But all I could think about was Karen's smile. That cold, confident look in her eyes when she told me the land didn't belong to me anymore. She was wrong, and today, she was going to find out just how wrong. I made coffee in Pop's old percolator. stood on the porch and watched the valley wake up. A few lights came on in the distant houses. Someone's dog barked. A car engine started somewhere down the road. I was on my second cup when I heard tires on gravel. The white Escalade rolled up my driveway at exactly 8 o'clock. Karen stepped out, followed by two other women. One was tall and thin with a severe haircut. The other was shorter, rounder, wearing a visor and too much perfume. Both carried clipboards. Karen had a camera. "Good morning," she called out, her voice dripping with false cheer. "I hope you slept well, because today we're documenting every code violation on this property." I stayed on the porch, didn't move, just watched as the three of them circled the cabin like vultures. Karen snapped photos of everything: the peeling paint, the crooked porch railing, the moss growing on the north side of the roof, the tall grass in the yard. The thin woman measured the distance between the cabin and the property line with a tape measure, wrote something on her clipboard. The other woman poked at the foundation with her shoe, made a disgusted face. "This is a structural hazard," Karen announced loudly, holding up her camera. "I'm filing a report with the county building inspector. This structure should be condemned." I set my coffee cup down on the porch railing. "I'd like to see the HOA's legal charter," I said. Karen looked up, surprised I'd spoken. Then she laughed. "You don't get to make demands, honey. You're not even supposed to be here." "When was the HOA formed?" I asked. 2019. Karen walked closer, her heels sinking slightly into the soft dirt. "When responsible property owners decided to protect our investments from eyesores like this." "And who gave you authority over this land?" "It's unincorporated land. Anyone can file for community oversight." She crossed her arms. "Which is exactly what we did. Legally, with a lawyer." I took a slow breath. Not if someone already owns it. Karen's smile faltered, just for a second. "What are you implying?" "I'm saying I'm going to the county records office today, and I'm hiring a lawyer." The two other women exchanged glances. Karen's face hardened. "Waste of money, but go ahead. You'll see I'm right. You'll see that you have no claim to this land. And when the county inspector comes out here and condemns this shack, you'll have 48 hours to demolish it. Or we will." She turned on her heel and marched back to her car. The other women followed. Before they drove off, Karen got out one more time, walked to the edge of the driveway, and planted a wooden sign in the dirt. "Condemned by Pine Valley, HOA." Then she got back in the Escalade and drove away. I stood there, staring at the sign for a long time. Part of me wanted to rip it out of the ground and throw it in the creek, but another part of me knew better. This was evidence, proof of harassment, proof that Karen thought she had power she didn't actually have. I took a photo of the sign with my phone. Then I went inside, grabbed the metal box with all of Pop's documents, and got in my car. The county seat was 45 minutes away, a small town called Ridgefield with a courthouse, a library, and a diner that looked like it hadn't changed since 1950. I found the county records office on the second floor of the courthouse. A tired-looking woman behind the desk directed me to the property records section. It took 20 minutes of searching through dusty files before I found what I needed. Pop's original deed, recorded in 1978, never amended, never sold, never transferred. I made copies. Then I asked the clerk if there were any recent filings related to Pine Valley. She typed something into her computer, frowned. "There's an HOA charter filed in 2019, but it doesn't list a property owner's approval. That's unusual." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means the HOA formed without landowner consent. Technically, they have no legal authority." My heart started pounding. "Can I get a copy of that too?" "Sure thing." I left the courthouse with a folder full of documents, proof, evidence, ammunition. But I still needed a lawyer. I found one 3 blocks away, a small office above a coffee shop. The sign on the door said, "Diane Chen, attorney at law, real estate and property disputes." Perfect. The receptionist told me Diane was with a client but could see me in 20 minutes. I waited in the lobby, flipping through the documents, rehearsing what I was going to say. When Diane finally called me in, I felt a rush of relief. She was maybe 50, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, the kind of person who didn't waste time. I laid everything out on her desk: the deed, the surveyor's map, Pop's letter, the HOA charter, Karen's violation notices. Diane read through it all methodically, didn't say a word, just turned pages, made notes, cross-referenced dates. Finally, she looked up. "Do you know what you have here?" she asked. "My grandfather's property," I said. "No." She tapped the surveyor's map. "You have the entire valley." I nodded. "I know." "No, I don't think you do." She stood up and spread the map across her desk. "These boundaries encompass over 300 acres. Every house, every driveway, every mailbox, all of it is on your land." "But they built without permission," I said. "Exactly." Diane sat back down, her expression serious. "Your grandfather allowed informal use, but he never sold any parcels, never signed easements, never filed subdivisions. Legally, all of those homes are built on land you now own." My mouth went dry. "What does that mean?" "It means you have options." She started counting on her fingers. "You could evict everyone. You could charge back rent for years of unauthorized use. You could sell parcels individually. You could sell the entire valley to a developer." I felt dizzy. "I don't want to do any of that." "Then what do you want?" I thought about Pop, about the way he lived. Quiet, kind, never asking for more than he needed. "I just want to be left alone," I said. "I want to honor my grandfather's memory, fix up the cabin, scatter his ashes, and not have some HOA president threatening me every 5 minutes." Diane smiled. "Then it's time Karen Whitmore learns who actually has the power here." We spent the next hour going over strategy. Diane ran a full title search to confirm everything. It all checked out. Pop's deed was rock solid. The HOA had no legal standing. Karen's fines were worthless. "There's an HOA meeting scheduled for tomorrow night," Diane said. "Karen is presenting something called a Valley Improvement Plan." "What's that?" "According to the agenda, she wants to demolish non-compliant structures and develop the land." Diane looked at me over her reading glasses. "Your cabin is listed as the primary target." My jaw tightened. "She's planning to tear down my grandfather's cabin." "She's planning to try." Diane closed her laptop. "Here's what we're going to do. You're going to attend that meeting, say nothing, let her present her entire plan, and when she's done, you're going to present the deed." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Diane's smile was sharp. Let her hang herself. I drove back to the cabin as the sun was setting. The valley glowed orange and gold, beautiful and deceptive. Karen's condemned sign was still planted in my yard. I left it there. Inside, I sat at the kitchen table and looked at Pop's photo on the mantel. He was smiling in that picture, proud, content. "I'm not going to let her win," I said to the empty room. "I promise." Tomorrow night, Karen Whitmore was going to get the surprise of her life, and I was going to make sure everyone in Pine Valley knew the truth. Diane spread the surveyor's map across her desk like a treasure map. "Every structure in Pine Valley," she said, tracing the boundaries with her pen, "is on your land." We were back in her office the next morning. I'd barely slept, kept replaying the confrontation in my head, imagining Karen's face when she realized the truth. Diane had spent the evening running a full title search. Now she had a stack of documents 3 inches thick. "Your grandfather's deed is legitimate, recorded, and uncontested," she said. "No one ever filed adverse possession claims. And even if they tried, they couldn't. Adverse possession in this state requires 20 years of continuous hostile occupation. Most of these homes have only been here for 10 years or less." "What about the HOA?" I asked. "Formed without landowner consent, which means it has no legal authority over your property." She pulled out Karen's violation notices. "These fines are worthless. She has no right to levy them. And her threat to condemn your cabin? Empty. Only the county can do that, and they'd need cause." I felt a weight lift off my chest. "So I'm safe." "You're more than safe." Diane leaned back in her chair. "You have all the power here. You could evict everyone tomorrow if you wanted. You could charge back rent for years of unauthorized use. You could sell individual parcels at market rate, or you could sell the entire valley to a developer for millions." The thought made me feel sick. "I don't want to do any of that." "I know." Her expression softened. "But Karen doesn't know that. And right now, she thinks she's about to win." "The HOA meeting is tonight," I said. 7 o'clock, at the community clubhouse. Diane pulled out a printed agenda. Karen's presenting her valley improvement plan. According to this, she wants to demolish, quote, non-compliant structures that threaten property values, end quote. Your cabin is listed specifically. My hands curled into fists. She's really trying to tear it down. She's trying, but she won't succeed. Diane gathered the documents into a leather folder. I'm coming with you tonight. We're going to let her present her entire plan. Let her show everyone those architectural renderings of luxury condos. Let her convince the room that she's saving the valley. And then you're going to show them who actually owns it. The drive back to the cabin felt longer than usual. My mind was racing. Part of me wanted to march into Karen's house right now and confront her. But Diane was right. Better to do it publicly. Better to let everyone see. I spent the afternoon cleaning the cabin, sweeping, dusting, organizing Pop's things. It felt good to move, to do something with my hands. At 6:30, I changed into clean clothes, grabbed the leather folder Diane had given me, took one last look at Pop's photo on the mantel. Wish me luck, I whispered. The community clubhouse was a fancy building at the south end of the valley. Vaulted ceilings, stone fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the mountains. It looked expensive, new, and it was sitting on my land. Cars filled the parking lot. I recognized some of them from around the valley. Found a spot near the back and sat there for a moment, gathering my courage. Diane pulled up beside me. Ready? As I'll ever be. We walked in together. The main room was set up with rows of folding chairs facing a podium. Maybe 30 people were already seated, chatting, laughing, drinking coffee from a table near the back. No one noticed me slip into the back row. Karen stood at the podium shuffling papers. She wore a cream-colored blazer and too much jewelry. Her hair was sprayed into submission. She looked confident, powerful. At 7 o'clock exactly, she tapped the microphone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. We have a lot to cover tonight, so let's get started. The room quieted down. Karen clicked a button and a PowerPoint presentation appeared on the screen behind her. The title slide said, Pine Valley Improvement Plan, Securing Our Future. As you all know, Karen began, our community has grown tremendously over the past 5 years. We've worked hard to maintain standards, to protect property values, to create a place we can all be proud of. Murmurs of agreement from the crowd. But there's one problem that threatens everything we've built. She clicked to the next slide. A photo of my cabin filled the screen. My breath caught. This structure, Karen said, her voice dripping with disdain, sits at the heart of our valley. It's a safety hazard, a fire risk, an eyesore that lowers everyone's property values by an estimated 15%. She clicked again. More photos, close-ups of the peeling paint, the sagging roof, the overgrown yard. The owner recently returned after years of abandonment. But ownership doesn't excuse negligence, and the HOA has a responsibility to act. Another click. An architectural rendering appeared. Sleek, modern condos, manicured lawns, a central plaza with a fountain. This is what we could have, Karen said. Luxury residences, increased property values, a true community centerpiece. The room buzzed with interest. Some people looked excited, others looked uncomfortable. Of course, this requires removing the existing structure, Karen continued, which is why I've already consulted with county officials and a development partner. We have the authority. We have the plan. All we need is your approval to move forward. She looked out at the crowd, her smile triumphant. So tonight, I'm asking for a vote. Do we reclaim this land for the community? Do we finally address the blight at the heart of Pine Valley? Several hands shot up immediately. I felt sick. Then I stood up. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at me. Karen's face went pale, then red. This is a closed meeting, residents only. I walked slowly down the center aisle, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. I am a resident. I own property in Pine Valley. You own nothing, Karen snapped. You're squatting on abandoned land. I reached the podium and set the leather folder down. This says otherwise. Karen stared at the folder like it was a snake. I opened it and pulled out the deed, held it up so everyone could see. My grandfather purchased 320 acres in Pine Valley in 1978. Recorded with the county, never sold, never subdivided, never transferred. Diane stood and walked to the front, started handing out copies of the surveyor's map to the nearest residents. They passed them down the rows. "What is this?" someone asked. "That's a surveyor's map from 1979, Diane said. "It shows the legal boundaries of the property owned by Alex's grandfather, and now owned by Alex." I watched as people studied the maps, watched the confusion on their faces turn to understanding, then shock. "This can't be right," a woman in the third row said. "Our house is inside these boundaries." "So is mine," said a man near the window. "So is everyone's," I said quietly. The room erupted, people talking over each other, some standing, some looking at Karen with accusation in their eyes. Karen grabbed the microphone. "This is fake! These documents are forged. Don't listen to them." "They're not forged," Diane said, her voice calm and professional. "They're notarized and recorded with the county. Public record. Anyone can verify them." "I don't believe it," Karen said, her voice rising. "This is a scam. A con. They're trying to steal our homes." "No one's stealing anything," I said. "I'm just telling you the truth. My grandfather owned this land. He let people build here out of kindness, but he never sold it. And the HOA you formed? It has no legal authority because it was created without the landowner's permission." A man in the front row stood up. He was maybe 65, with kind eyes and weathered hands. "Are you saying we've been living on your land this whole time?" "Yes," I said. "And you're going to kick us out?" The fear in his voice broke my heart. "No, I'm not my grandfather's enemy. I'm not anyone's enemy. I just want to be left alone, to honor his memory, to fix up his cabin and live in peace." "Then why are you here?" the man asked. I looked at Karen. She was gripping the podium so hard her knuckles were white. "Because she was going to tear down my home," I said. "Because she lied to all of you. Because she tried to develop land she doesn't own. And because I'm tired of being threatened." Karen's face twisted. "You haven't won. I will fight this. I will bury you in legal fees. You'll regret ever coming back here." She grabbed her presentation materials and stormed toward the exit. At the door, she turned back. Her voice shook with rage. "This isn't over." Then she was gone. The door slammed so hard the windows rattled. The room sat in stunned silence. Then the kind-faced man raised his hand. "Are you really going to kick us out?" I looked at all their faces, saw the fear, the confusion, the worry about losing their homes, their investments, their lives. And I thought about Pop, about the way he lived, generous, forgiving, kind. "No," I said, "I'm not going to kick you out." The relief in the room was palpable. "But things need to change," I continued. "The HOA can't keep operating like it has authority over my property. And I need legal protections, for me and for all of you." Diane stepped forward. "What Alex is proposing is simple. Long-term lease agreements, 99 years at a nominal annual fee. You keep your homes, you keep your investments, everyone has legal standing, no one gets hurt." "And the HOA?" someone asked. "Can continue operating," Diane said. "But it has no authority over Alex's cabin or the land Alex chooses to keep private." People looked at each other, whispered, calculated. Finally, the kind-faced man stood again. "That sounds fair. More than fair, actually." He walked over and extended his hand. "I'm Tom, and I'm sorry for what Karen put you through." I shook his hand. "Thank you." Others came forward, introduced themselves, apologized, thanked me. A woman named Linda squeezed my arm. "Your grandfather was a good man. He helped us fix our roof once, never asked for a thing. I'm glad his family is like him." By the time the meeting ended, most people seemed relieved, grateful even. But as I drove back to the cabin, all I could think about was Karen's face, the rage in her eyes. Diane had warned me. She won't let this go. People like her don't admit defeat. I parked in front of the cabin and sat in the dark for a moment. The valley was quiet, peaceful, but I had a feeling the storm wasn't over yet. It was just beginning. The meeting didn't end. It shifted. Residents stayed for another 2 hours, asking questions, sharing stories, and slowly beginning to trust. I sat at a folding table in the corner while Diane explained the lease agreements, how they'd work, what they'd cost, what protections everyone would have. Tom pulled up a chair beside me. "I want to apologize," he said. "We should have questioned Karen a long time ago. She always had an answer for everything, made it sound so official, so legal." "She's convincing," I said. "She's a bully." He shook his head. "She moved here 5 years ago and immediately started taking over. Formed the HOA, made herself president, started making rules. Anyone who disagreed with her got fined or shamed or pushed out. Why didn't anyone stop her?" Tom looked uncomfortable. "Because most of us are only here part-time. Vacation homes, you know? We didn't want the hassle. Easier to just go along with whatever Karen wanted." He met my eyes. "That was wrong. And I'm sorry your grandfather bore the brunt of it." "He never told me," I said quietly. "I didn't know she was harassing him. He was a proud man. Didn't like to complain." Tom smiled sadly. "But he loved this valley. Used to walk the trails every morning. Always had a kind word for anyone he met." A lump formed in my throat. That sounds like him. By the time everyone left, I had a list of names and phone numbers, people who wanted to help restore the cabin, people who wanted to make amends. Diane packed up her briefcase. That went better than I expected. "Karen's not going to let this go," I said. "No," Diane agreed. "She's not. But you have the law on your side. And now you have the community too." I drove home through the dark valley. A few porch lights glowed in the distance. The stars overhead were sharp and bright. For the first time since arriving, I felt like maybe this could work. Maybe I could stay here, make a life, honor Pop's memory the right way. But when I pulled into my driveway, that hope flickered. Karen's car was parked across the dirt road that led to my cabin, blocking the way. She was sitting in the driver's seat, arms crossed, staring straight ahead. I got out of my car slowly, walked up to her window. She rolled it down. Her eyes were red. Mascara smudged. "This is a public road," she said. Her voice was flat, defeated. "It's not a public road," I said. "It's on my property. I have every right to be here." "No, you don't." We stared at each other for a long moment. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Why does my cabin bother you so much?" Karen's jaw tightened. "Because it doesn't belong here. Because it's old and ugly, and it ruins everything." "It was here first," I said. "Long before your house. Long before any of this." "That doesn't matter." Her voice rose. "This valley could be worth millions. Real development, real progress. But that shack of yours sits right in the middle of everything. Developers won't touch the valley as long as it's there." And there it was. The truth. This wasn't about property values or safety codes or community standards. This was about money. Karen had been trying to sell the valley, and my cabin was in the way. "You never owned this land," I said quietly. "You never had the right to sell it." "I would have," she spat. "If your grandfather had just died a year earlier. I had a buyer lined up, a development company ready to pay 8 figures. But he held on just long enough to ruin everything." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. "Get out of my driveway. Make me." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Karen's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" "Calling the sheriff. You're trespassing on private property, blocking access to my home. That's illegal." She started her car. "This isn't over." "Yes," I said, "it is." She reversed onto the main road and sped off, tires squealing. I stood there in the dark, shaking, not from fear, from anger. The deputy arrived 20 minutes later. A young guy named Marcus, clean-cut and polite. "You called about a trespassing incident?" he asked. I explained what happened, showed him the property boundaries on my phone, gave him Karen's name and address. Marcus wrote everything down. "Has she done this before?" "She's been harassing me since I arrived. Threatening fines, trying to get my cabin condemned. Tonight she blocked my driveway. Do you want to press charges?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say yes, wanted to make her face consequences, but another part of me just wanted it to be over. Not tonight, I said. But I want this documented. If she comes back, I will press charges. Marcus nodded. Understood. I'll file a report and have a talk with her. Sometimes that's enough to de-escalate things. After he left, I sat on the porch steps with a beer. The valley was silent except for wind in the trees. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom. Heard what happened. Are you okay? I typed back. I'm fine. Thanks for checking. We're having an emergency HOA meeting tomorrow night. Voting on new leadership. You should come. I'll think about it. Also, a bunch of us want to help with the cabin. Fix the roof. Paint. Whatever you need. It's the least we can do. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "Thank you. That means a lot." I woke up the next morning to the sound of hammering, stumbled outside in my pajamas and found Tom on my roof with 2 other men. They were pulling up old shingles and tossing them into a dumpster that hadn't been there yesterday. "What are you doing?" I called up. Tom grinned. "Fixing your roof. Hope you don't mind. We wanted to get started early." Linda appeared around the corner carrying a casserole dish. "Good morning, sweetheart. I brought breakfast and lunch. You look too thin." Before I could respond, 3 more cars pulled up. More neighbors, more tools. Someone had a pressure washer. Someone else had paint cans. By noon, the cabin looked like a construction site. People everywhere, scraping paint, fixing the porch railing, replacing rotten boards. I tried to help, but Linda kept shooing me away. "You just supervise, honey. We've got this." Diane called around too. "Have you seen the neighborhood Facebook group?" "I'm not on Facebook," I said. "Well, Karen is. And she's been posting all morning. Claims you're a con artist. Says the documents are fake. She's trying to rally people against you. Is it working? Not even a little. Everyone's defending you. Tom posted photos of your grandfather's deed. Linda shared a story about how your grandfather helped her family. Even people who weren't at the meeting last night are turning on Karen." I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. She's not going to stop. "No," Diane agreed. "But she's losing. And people like Karen don't handle that well." That evening, Tom invited me to the emergency HOA meeting. It was smaller this time, just the board members and a handful of residents. Karen didn't show. They voted unanimously to remove her as president. Tom was elected as her replacement. "First order of business," Tom said, looking at me. "We owe you an apology, an official one. The HOA was formed improperly. We had no legal authority over your property. And Karen abused her position to harass you. On behalf of everyone here, I'm sorry." The room applauded. "Second order of business," Tom continued. "We'd like to propose a new community agreement. One that respects your ownership and gives everyone legal protection. Diane Chen has drafted something. We'd like your input." We spent the next hour going over the details. 99-year leases. $100 per year per household. The HOA could continue managing common areas, but had no authority over my cabin or the land I wanted to keep private. It was fair, more than fair. "There's one more thing," Linda said. She stood up, holding a folder. "We took up a collection. For the cabin repairs. It's not much, but we wanted to contribute." She handed me the folder. Inside was a check for $5,000. My throat tightened. "I can't accept this." "You can, and you will," Linda said firmly. "Your grandfather was good to this valley. It's time we were good to his family." I looked around at their faces. These people who'd been strangers a week ago, who'd lived on my land without knowing it, who could have been angry or resentful or defensive. Instead, they were kind. "Thank you," I managed to say. Tom walked me to my car afterward. "Karen put her house up for sale this morning," he said. "She's leaving." "Good," I said. Then more quietly, "I don't know why I feel bad about it." "Because you're a good person," Tom said. "But don't." She made her choices, and she would have destroyed your cabin without a second thought. I drove home slowly, windows down, letting the cool night air wash over me. The cabin looked different now, fresh paint on the trim, new shingles on the roof, the porch railing sturdy and straight. It looked loved. Inside, I found a note on the kitchen table. We'll be back tomorrow to finish the porch. Linda's bringing pie. Tom. I smiled, set the note on the mantel next to Pop's photo. They're good people, I said to the empty room. You were right about that. My phone buzzed. A text from Diane. Karen just served you with a lawsuit, emotional distress and defamation. Don't worry, it'll go nowhere. I read the message twice. Then I set my phone down. Looked out the window at the dark valley, at the stars, at the mountains silhouetted against the sky. Karen could sue. She could rage. She could try every legal trick in the book, but she'd already lost. The valley was mine. The community was healing. And Pop's cabin was going to stand for another 50 years. I poured myself a glass of whiskey from Pop's cabinet, raised it toward his photo. To stubborn old men, I said, and the land they loved. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, and for the first time since arriving, I felt like I was home. The for sale sign appeared in Karen's yard 3 days later. No warning, just a realtor's placard and an empty driveway. I saw it on my morning walk. The biggest house in the valley, perched on a hill with floor-to-ceiling windows and a 3-car garage. It looked cold, sterile. Nothing like the other homes that had grown organically into the landscape over the years. Tom was checking his mailbox when I walked past. Heard she's already moved out, he said, staying with her sister in Denver while the house sells. That was fast. She doesn't have a choice. Her legal bills are piling up, and no one here will talk to her anymore. He shook his head. 5 years she spent trying to control this place, and it all came down in a week. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated, but mostly I just felt tired. Come on, Tom said. Linda's making coffee and cinnamon rolls. Everyone's gathering at your place. My place? He grinned. You'll see. When I got back to the cabin, there were a dozen cars in the driveway, people unloading folding tables, coolers, a grill. Linda directed traffic from the porch like a general commanding troops. There you are, she said when she spotted me. We're having a community potluck to celebrate the new lease agreements and to properly welcome you home. You didn't have to do this. We wanted to. She squeezed my arm. Your grandfather would sit on this porch and wave at everyone who drove by. Never missed a day. We should have been better neighbors to him. So we're starting over with you. By noon, the yard was full. Kids playing tag, adults talking and laughing, the smell of burgers and hot dogs on the grill. Diane showed up around 1, carrying a briefcase and a bottle of wine. I have the lease agreements, she announced. All drafted, all legal, ready for signatures. We set up a table under a big pine tree. One by one, families came over to sign. Each one thanked me. Each one shared a memory of Pop. A man named Richard said Pop helped him jump his car one winter. 20 below zero, my battery died. Your grandfather showed up with cables and a thermos of coffee. Wouldn't leave until my car started. A woman named Patricia said Pop carved her daughter a wooden bird for her birthday. She still has it. Keeps it on her nightstand. Story after story. Small kindnesses I never knew about. By the time the last family signed, I had tears in my eyes. He was a good man, Tom said quietly, and he'd be proud of you. The afternoon stretched into evening. Someone started a bonfire. Someone else brought out a guitar. Kids roasted marshmallows while adults swapped stories and passed around thermoses of spiked cider. I sat on the porch steps, watching it all, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Belonging. My phone buzzed. A text from Diane. Karen's lawsuit was dismissed. Judge called it frivolous. She's been ordered to pay your legal fees. I showed the message to Tom. He laughed. That's what, $3,000 in lawyer bills? At least, I said. Couldn't happen to a nicer person. As the fire burned low, people started packing up, hugging goodbye, promising to come back soon. Linda was the last to leave. She pressed a container into my hands. Green bean casserole, your grandfather's favorite. Recipe hasn't changed in 40 years. Thank you, I said, for everything. You're family now, she said simply. That's what we do. After everyone left, I sat alone on the porch. The valley was dark and quiet, the stars overhead impossibly bright. I thought about Karen, about the rage in her eyes, the desperation, the way she'd tried so hard to control something that was never hers. Part of me felt sorry for her, but mostly I just felt relieved it was over. The next morning, I drove to Pop's favorite fishing spot, a bend in the creek where the water ran clear and cold over smooth stones. He used to bring me here when I was a kid, taught me to cast, to read the water, to be patient. I carried the wooden urn down to the water's edge. Tom and Linda had asked to come, but I needed to do this alone. The morning light filtered through the trees. Everything smelled like pine and earth and possibility. I opened the urn and scattered Pop's ashes into the creek, watched them swirl and drift downstream, becoming part of the valley, part of the land he loved. "You did good," I whispered, "holding on to this place, protecting it. I'll do the same." A deer stepped out of the tree line on the opposite bank, paused, looked directly at me with dark, liquid eyes. We held each other's gaze for a long moment. Then it dipped its head to drink and continued downstream, unhurried and unafraid. I sat on a fallen log and watched the water move, let the grief wash over me and through me and away. Pop was gone, but his legacy remained, in the land, in the cabin, in the community he'd quietly helped for decades, and now it was mine to protect. I stayed at the creek until the sun was high overhead. Then I walked back to the cabin, feeling lighter than I had in months. There was a car parked in my driveway. For a moment, my heart sank. Not Karen again, but it wasn't the white Escalade. It was a modest sedan, and the woman standing on my porch wasn't Karen. She was younger, mid-30s maybe, professional clothes, nervous smile. "Alex?" she asked as I approached. "That's me. I'm Jennifer. I'm Karen's realtor." She held up her hands. I know. But I'm not here on her behalf. I'm here on mine." I crossed my arms. "What do you want?" "To apologize and to ask a question." She took a breath. "Karen told me a lot of things about this property. About you, about your grandfather. None of it was true, was it?" "No," I said. "I thought so." She looked embarrassed. "I've been a realtor for 10 years. I should have done my own research, should have checked the title records. Karen was very convincing. She's good at that. I want to make it right." Jennifer pulled a folder from her bag. "I represent the family that's interested in buying Karen's house. They're wonderful people, retired teachers. They want a quiet place in the mountains." "Good for them," I said. "But what does that have to do with me?" "Everything." She opened the folder. Karen told them the HOA had control over all development in the valley, that there were plans for luxury condos and increased property values. She inflated the price by $200,000 based on those lies. I felt sick. So they're backing out? No, they still want to buy, but at a fair price, and they want to make sure they're not stepping into a legal nightmare. She handed me a document. "This is a letter from them. To you, asking if you'd be willing to meet, to explain the lease agreements, to put their minds at ease." I read the letter. It was humble, honest. They talked about wanting a simple life, about respecting the land and the community. "They sound like good people," I said. "They are. And they deserve to know the truth before they spend their retirement savings." I thought about it, about Karen, about the lies she'd told, about the damage she'd done even on her way out. "Tell them to come by tomorrow afternoon," I said. "I'll explain everything." Jennifer's face lit up. "Thank you. Really, this means everything to them." After she left, I called Diane. "Can you come by tomorrow? I need you to explain the lease agreements to some potential buyers." "Of course. Are they nice?" "I think so," I said. "I hope so." The couple arrived the next day at 2 o'clock. Robert and Margaret, late 60s, kind faces and firm handshakes. We sat on the porch while Diane explained everything, the property boundaries, the lease agreements, my grandfather's legacy. Margaret cried when I showed them Pop's photo. "He looks like he was a wonderful man." "He was," I said. "We'll take good care of Karen's house," Robert said. "Or, well, our house, if we buy it. We'll be good neighbors, promise." "That's all I ask," I said. They left an hour later, smiling, relieved. 2 weeks passed. The lease agreements were finalized. The cabin repairs were finished. The valley settled into a comfortable rhythm. Karen's house sold. Robert and Margaret moved in, brought homemade cookies to introduce themselves to the neighbors. Linda said it was the first time in 5 years the valley felt peaceful. One evening, I was sitting on the porch when a legal envelope arrived in the mail. Return address, Karen's lawyer in Denver. My stomach dropped. Not again. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a notice that Karen was dropping all legal action. No lawsuit, no appeals, nothing. At the bottom, handwritten in tiny letters, "I'm sorry." I read it 3 times. Then I folded it up and put it in Pop's metal box with all the other documents. I didn't forgive her, but I didn't need to carry the anger anymore either. That night, the HOA hosted a summer barbecue. The whole valley came. Music and laughter and kids running through the twilight. Tom raised a glass. To Alex, for protecting this valley, and for being exactly the kind of person we needed. Everyone cheered. I looked around at their faces, at the families and the firelight and the mountains rising in the distance. To Pop, I said, for seeing something worth protecting. We drank. We talked. We watched the stars come out one by one. And later, when everyone had gone home and the valley was quiet again, I sat on the porch with a blanket and Pop's flannel shirt wrapped around my shoulders. The land was mine now, all 320 acres. But it didn't feel like ownership. It felt like responsibility, like stewardship. Pop had protected this place for 47 years, and now it was my turn. A coyote howled somewhere in the distance. Another answered from across the valley. I closed my eyes and listened, to the wind in the pines, to the creek running over stones, to the sound of home. Pop always said the land takes care of those who take care of it. He was right.